Hey, Tom Rabbit! I hope you got this for your recording. Hey, YouTube out there. Tom Rabbit likes to record these. Hey, Tom Rabbit!
The defense and substantiation of atheism as a universal negative, it's absolutely impossible. That's why they rely on just regurgitating cliches and slogans as bullet points, but they don't hold up upon examination. I've been debating atheists for 12 years. I have yet to hear one of them give me one bullet point for atheism that holds up upon examination.
I've been doing this for 20, if you'd like to have a conversation.
Sure. Okay. So
How do
you
you
call you
how do
so
you
you
know?
call yourself an agnostic, okay?
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you explain to me then why do you use the atheist symbol if you're an agnostic?
People pointed that out. I just think it looks nice. I might be better defined by atheist, but I should maybe change the symbol. You got a point.
Okay, so is it your position? And I'm going to give you a multiple choice question. Is it your position that God does exist? Is it your position that God does not exist? Is it your position that you suspend judgment, or that the word or the concept of God is unintelligible?
As I've gone through this and so I'm going to answer directly. 3, maybe 4. I feel maybe 3 better describes me because you did a good job right there with theist, atheist, agnostic, and igtheist. So I don't know. I'm still debating if I should be an igtheist, but probably 3.
Okay, so you claim to suspend judgment?
Can I phrase would you like me to phrase it the way I phrase it?
No, I'm just asking you, do you claim to suspend judgment about the propositions that God does or does not exist? Very simple question.
Yes. To the proposition God does not exist, 2 separate propositions, I fail to evaluate them.
No, that wasn't.
Well, like suspend judgment as in
Suspend judgment is a little bit more nuanced. It's a little bit different.
I do not make a value judgment on them.
Okay, well, that's a claim. Are you prepared to defend it?
Yes.
Okay. So we have 2 possible worlds. We have the God world and the not God world, as per the law of excluded middle. Do you accept what I just said?
Yep. Dichotomous.
Okay. Now, in a God world, all facts would be invoked explicitly or implicitly with reference to the necessity of God. In a not God world, all facts would be invoked explicitly or implicitly without referencing the necessity of God. Okay? So do you understand the relationship between, as I say, temporal states versus God? Okay? So
I understand.
okay, so now you are claiming to suspend judgment, which is the traditional agnostic position. Claims don't justify themselves. They're going to need an unpacking, unless, of course, the claim is, self-attesting and self-authenticating. Now, when you invoke facts, do you positively reference the necessity of God?
I'm writing down what you say just to make sure I get it right. When I invoke facts, do I invoke the positive necessity of God?
Yeah. Do you do that explicitly or implicitly?
Can you explain how one? I'm not trying to dodge. I just want to know how when one references facts. Are you saying because facts are contingent, maybe that it requires a first call? I don't know how to answer the question right now. Is what I'm saying.
Okay, so if a fact references the necessity of the positive side when you invoke facts, do you reference the necessity of God by choice?
At this point, I do not believe I do.
Okay, so then you invoke facts by choice without referencing the necessity of God?
Well, but I also don't invoke facts invoking the necessity of not God.
I don't think you're understanding the question. Okay.
So you're saying one?
I'm asking you what you do. You told us that you don't invoke facts by choice
I
with
agree.
reference to the necessity of God. So there's only two kinds of facts: those
Okay.
facts that reside in a God world and those facts that reside in the not God world. Facts cannot exist in any other realm.
And there is a fact that we're in one of those two worlds, either the not God world or the God
Okay,
world.
so this is as per the law of excluded middle. Are you
Mhm.
familiar with the law of excluded middle?
Oh yeah, I know. I know laws.
Okay, okay. So if you're invoking facts and you say, I am not invoking facts with reference to the necessity of God, okay, that logically entails that you're invoking them without reference to the necessity of God, and they stand in virtue of the not God world, in spite of any denials to otherwise. This is something that is inescapable and unavoidable.
I guess you could say that my facts do not require a God.
Okay, so that could be formulated is I invoke facts without referencing the necessity of God. Do you agree with that?
I'm just going to repeat back and tell you I agree. Probably one either invokes facts with the necessity of God, or one either invokes or one does not invoke facts with the necessity of God. I am in the second group. I do not invoke facts with the necessity of God.
Okay, so when you invoke facts without reference to the necessity of God, it is the same thing as saying these facts exist, no God needed. Do you accept the equivalent statement?
I'm just thinking through it.
If God was needed, you'd have to reference him.
Well,
It's not a trick question.
I know. I'm just thinking through to see if it all
The
logically.
questions have been designed by me through years of practice to provide as much clarity on the issue as possible.
So you're saying, repeat the statement again. I'll tell you if I agree or disagree.
Okay. To assert I invoke facts without referencing the necessity of God is the equivalent of saying I invoke facts, no God needed, that is to exist.
Sure.
Okay. To say that God is not necessary is the same thing as saying God doesn't exist. You don't have to verbalize God denialism by saying God doesn't exist. All you have to say is God is not needed. He's not necessary. That's the same thing as saying God doesn't exist. Do you accept that?
I think my view, I don't accept it completely, and I'll tell you why.
You're
Because
going to have to give me a rebuttal.
well, I'm going to give you this is my rebuttal, is that my worldview is I'm not convinced that facts necessitate God,
That's
but
just a restatement of your opening position again.
but I
I
know.
just want to assure, may I interject for a moment?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. This is not to insult you in any way, but nothing that you're going to say to me I haven't heard before and that I'm not prepared for.
Well, if we go, I'm not trying to be insulting either, but if we go off your script, I'll give you new things.
Okay. Well, you can call it a script as you want. Okay. But it's a line of reasoning, just like any good
Well, then
logic is.
we'll continue down it if you want. So let's say,
Okay. So
I
the
agree.
bottom line here is this:
I
your
invoke.
position.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay. So
it
let's be
entails that
clear.
it entails that I have a worldview that says God does not exist. The
Yeah.
entailment of my views are a worldview, a not God worldview.
Okay. So that constitutes not a suspension of judgment.
Can I put it in a different way
Good.
for him, Darth?
Just wait a second. Do you realize that what you have just affirmed contradicts the notion that one is suspending judgment? Your position entails necessarily, by virtue of what you affirm, that God doesn't exist. That's not a suspension of judgment. Do you understand?
I'm thinking through it. And
Take your time.
I'm happy to hear Parakeet's thoughts on this too, because I
I
don't
was
know.
just going to
Parakeet.
say another way of putting what Darth has said in a perhaps more succinct manner is that you're asserting, it's all through the conversation here, you've been asserting states of affairs. Every
Mhm.
state of affairs that you assert entails logically that God doesn't exist, because you're asserting states of affairs that cannot exist in God's world. They cannot coexist with God because they don't reference God.
So in a God world, it necessitates that facts are contingent on God. believing that facts do not necessitate a God invokes the not God world.
Directly or indirectly. It's true via modus ponens. Do you know what modus ponens is?
Of course, I know syllogisms.
Good. Yeah. So we can put to rest your claim that you're suspending judgment about God's existence. Agreed?
Well, but the thing is, I am a local atheist in some ways. There are formulations.
Sir, that's not an answer to my question. That was a dodge.
Well, I'm not trying to dodge.
That was a dodge right out of the gate. I asked you a direct question. You're not giving me a direct answer.
Ask it again. I'll be very direct.
Okay, well, that would be nice this time. Okay, so do you understand that your previous claim
Darth
that
is being polite. He's being generally pretty polite.
So, your previous claim that you suspend judgment now is false. You don't suspend judgment. Okay, your position logically commits you and entails the not God world. So you're not suspending judgment.
I think you make a good point that the suspension of judgment, or as you're phrasing it, leads to the not God, necessitates a not God worldview, because you can't suspend judgment and then live in a world and believe in God, because then you've made a judgment, value judgment. But I do want to point out, this is my addendum, and I'm not going to bloviate too much.
Yeah, you adopted universal negative.
Bart, don't interfere, please, because he's doing very well so far. Usually we get atheist trolling, and he's not trolling, okay? Because I don't want, no disrespect to you, Bart. Go ahead, Adam.
So my take is, I do actually make value judgments on some gods. The most coherent version of a god I've seen from Christianity is the Calvinist God.
We're not discussing that right now.
I know,
another subject.
I'm just telling you that.
Sir, we're not discussing that right now. What we're asking you is, do you accept as true, directly or indirectly, the creator-creature distinction? In
the way you phrased it, I accept what you've said.
You accept what?
That it necessitates that I have a not God worldview. I can accept that.
Okay, so your previous statement that you were suspending judgment about the existence of a creator was incorrect.
No.
So you were correct in claiming that you suspend judgment about God's existence?
I have a not God worldview. I think that's been shown, but
you're not addressing my question.
Well, I said no directly to it.
Well, it wasn't clear to me. It seemed to me that this was not an answer to my question. You previously said you were suspending judgment, but now we've clarified, and you have consequently agreed that you, by choice, are invoking facts without referencing the necessity of God, which constitutes the denial of God, which is the opposite or a contradiction to the suspension of judgment about God.
So this is my response. But the God you're talking about is a subset of all gods, because
that's incorrect. That's absolutely false what you just said.
No, Darth, it's actually correct. It's a subset in the sense that you're denying all creator God concepts.
Yes. Well, I didn't talk about any flavor of a creator. Okay, what we're talking about is your position. We're not talking about my model of reality. We can get to that subsequently.
He means it's a subset in the sense that it's not like Zeus. It's not like a lowercase g God. It's this line of reasoning applies to any creator God concept where God.
Yeah, that's what we're talking. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about temporal agents who may have superpowers that are called God with a lower g.
Well, and that's so, to be very clear, and I think Parakeet knows my position here, is I think you've made a good point that I have made judgment on the creator God and come to the no position because I invoked facts without the necessity of a creator God. But then I don't have the ability to make value judgments on all gods. So that's what I was going to point out earlier. 10 seconds, I'll be done. I do think in some ways I'm a local atheist, and I do think some ways I'm an agnostic, and then sometimes an atheist. So that's why I made my kind of 3 and 4 earlier. Go ahead.
I think it's been clear the whole time we're talking about a creator God concepts and not temporal beings who may have superpowers. Okay, so you don't suspend judgment about the creator God as you initially had said. So your position is that God, i.e. the creator God, does not exist. Can you give me a defense of that?
Yes, because a prime mover Aristotelian style can kind of give you all the facts and everything.
Did you understand what I just said? I ask you to defend atheism, which is a universal negative, that there is no creator.
Well, no, but prime movers are not gods. Like
Sir, you're not answering my question. This is extremely bizarre, the response you just gave me. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to explain
Darth, he's saying that
why.
there's an alternative explanation he has.
Okay.
Is what
Now
he's saying.
you need to explain to me why there is no creator from whom all things that are not himself derive and depend. Okay. So can you defend that?
Because there's an alternative, which would be a prime mover or something else like a first cause that would explain motion and causality.
Okay. So there's another ultimacy of reality rather than God.
There's just an alternative that's a not God.
Okay. And yeah, I'm waiting for that. What is it?
Prime mover, first cause.
And is this personal or this prime mover? Is it impersonal?
All it needs necessity is to cause motion, so it doesn't need to be personal.
No, I'm asking you which it is.
Then if we go to the lowest base form of it, it probably is not personal. I don't know, but
No, I didn't. I'm not asking you to tell me maybe, possibly, seems that way, or probably. I'm asking you what it is.
I hold the belief that it's not personal, and I'm not.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, so there's an impersonal ultimacy of reality.
That is logically possible. There's no logical.
No, I didn't ask you whether it was possible, could be, maybe, seems that way. I asked you if it was.
I do not know.
Okay, so you now you don't have a metaphysic to falsify God.
No, I have a metaphysic, but I don't know the metaphysic is true.
No, you're not. I'm not getting through to you. See, you're so well practiced in double talk. I wasn't. I've been doing this for 12 years. Okay. I know when somebody's engaging in double talk. Okay. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm 61 years old. Okay. I'm a very well experienced debater, especially on these issues. Now, do you have something that is identifiable and defensible, that is ultimate, that is not God, from which all things derive and depend, that are not itself?
Aristotelian prime mover.
Okay. And that is impersonal?
It can be, yes.
No, I didn't ask you if it could be. See, you're repeating yourself again when I corrected you. I didn't ask you if it could be. It possibly is, probably. I said, is this ultimacy, is it impersonal?
I believe it is if it exists.
Okay. Do you have a rational defense that this ultimacy?
Whoa, wait. When you say if it exists, are you asserting that this is the case, or are you just saying I can imagine this scenario?
And so give me 20 seconds on this. I do wonder where we came from and how everything began. And I'm not trolling, but the only way I can describe it is with the necessities of what we would need to begin. And it really just comes from motion, matter, motion, energy. Those things could be enough to create the universe.
You have a bad habit of dodging. Okay?
I'm not going to dodge.
No, you have been. Okay, I didn't say what you will do. I said what you have been doing. You're dodging. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that to be rude, but I'm not gonna shrink away from telling you that you're dodging what you're doing. Now, I'm going to ask you again. I've asked you to defend that the creator of all things that are not himself does not exist. The creator would be in the category philosophically of what we would call ultimate. Okay. You have told us that a creator does not exist. Well, a creator would be something that's ultimate, personal, and an agent. Okay. Now, you said that doesn't exist. You presented as your defeater an ultimacy that is not God. Okay. So I'm asking you, is this ultimacy an agent and personal or not?
It's the way Aristotle defines it. It's not it is an agent, but when you think about what the prime mover is, it knows only of itself. So it's a being, it's an entity, and it's defined as not personal.
Okay. So the ultimacy of reality, which is the source and basis of all things that exist other than itself, you're telling me categorically it is impersonal?
That is a possibility, yes.
No, I didn't ask you if it was possible.
Yes.
Okay, how many times do we have to go through this? Okay, I ask you a direct question and I say, is this the case? And
Yes.
you come back saying it's possible. Did I ask you if it was possible? I asked you, is it the case?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Because it's what's all that's necessary.
No. Are you speculating?
If we are to get where we are today, then all we need is what is necessary.
Okay, that's not an answer to my question. You're dodging again. I
The answer-
ask you, when you assert that the ultimacy of reality is impersonal, when you assert that that is the case, are you being speculative?
I would say no.
Good. How do you know what the ultimacy of reality is in terms of its attributes, including how do you know that it is impersonal and not an agent? How do you know that?
I can't say I know, but I go by reasonable.
Do you have a rational defense that what you say is ultimate, that's a defeater for God, is impersonal and not an agent? Do you have a rational defense for that?
Yes.
What is it?
Can I get 30 seconds?
Sure, as long as you don't dodge.
I won't dodge. When I look at the world around us today and what is required to make the world around us, I think that we only need energy, matter, and motion. And energy and matter may have always existed for all we know. And then motion can come from the prime mover. And there are no other necessary qualities for it to have. And thus, I don't see a good reason, and that's my reasoning here, for not including it in the set of things the prime mover has.
Okay. Is that a speculation?
No, I think it's a logical inference.
And how are you able to determine what the characteristics of what is fundamental? How do you know what's necessary? Is it by pure reason?
Logic and reason, I'd say yes.
Okay, let me repeat the question. Is it by pure reason, by reason and reason alone?
Yes.
Okay, that's a major fail. Okay, here's why. You couldn't possibly know and defend what it is that is ultimate unless the ultimate was personal and an agent and had the attribute characteristics or set by which it acted in a way of making its existence known. Okay? If that which is ultimate is not an agent and discloses that it is, you couldn't know that it is. Do you want to dispute what I'm saying? What I just said?
I think, yes, I do want to dispute it.
Okay, so here's what your mission is. You're going to have to explain to me how this ultimacy, okay, how you can know that it is when this ultimacy, not being an agent, conducts itself, if you will, in a way of self-disclosure. So how do you know that there is indeed an ultimacy when the ultimacy, not being an agent, doesn't disclose its existence? Would you please do me a favor right now? Would you please get a glass of cold water for the invisible man in your room? Would you do that for me, please?
I already have it. But to the point you want me to...
No, I'm serious. Would you do that for me?
I'm sitting here. I might leave soon, but I can do that afterwards if you'd like.
No, but you're not taking me seriously. You don't actually think there's an invisible man in your room, do you?
Well, but you asked me an earlier question. I can go into it if you'd like.
No, I'm trying to make a point here. Okay, you're not taking me seriously because the invisible man hasn't disclosed to you one way or other that he's there, right? So you choose not to accept that there's an invisible man there. Is that correct?
That is correct, but I can elaborate on that.
Okay. Did the ultimacy of reality, which is not an agent and impersonal, produce the world in such a way so that knowledge is possible and so that you can know that the ultimacy exists, as opposed to that you're in a chance world?
I believe so.
How did you figure out that this ultimacy revealed itself?
Because I can look
Well,
at
it
the
couldn't
world
have
around.
revealed itself.
Whoa. How did you figure out how this ultimacy revealed itself?
it's not doing a personal revelation, but
Did the ultimacy of reality disclose itself to you?
no, but I can look at the world around
Okay,
me.
stop right there. Okay, good. Now you've stepped in it. Okay.
Go ahead.
You cannot know that something is there, that is what is ultimate, unless it reveals itself. You told me that you're using pure reason.
Mhm.
So your reason is not logically necessary. Okay. And by the way, since that which is necessary or ultimate doesn't reveal itself, then how do you know at all that something actually is necessary? How do you know that?
Causal chains of event.
No, that's begging the question. Is the causal principle real?
I have good reason to believe it is.
I didn't ask you that. I said, is the causal principle real?
Can I say something for 20 seconds?
No. Can you answer the question instead of dodging?
Well, the answer is I have good reason to believe it is.
No, I didn't ask you. Okay. So, what is it that institutes and secures the causal principle being ubiquitous? What makes it real?
The grounding of reality.
And what is that?
It would be the causal chain of events going from the prime mover.
No. Now you're engaging in double talk here. Okay. I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm not about to sit here and have you bullshit me like I'm some fifth grader. What you just said is absolute double talk. Okay. I start to get irritated when people think they're going to gaslight me because they're a good, they have the gift of the gab. Okay. You're not fooling me. Now,
I appreciate the compliment.
No, it wasn't a compliment. Okay. So now I'm asking you, is the causal principle, okay, itself in our uniform existence, is it derivative?
No. It's not in our.
Okay. You listen, with all due respect to you, and I'm not trying to insult you, you are out in left field. You don't know what you're talking about. You've stepped in it several times. If the causal principle itself in our uniform experience around us is not derivative, then it will have to possess the characteristic of aseity, which means it's self-contained, unconditionally non-dependent, and non-derivative. But then it would have to be what we call ultimate. But the causal principle is what we uniformly experience. Okay. So in the Christian worldview or in a God worldview, the causal principle is not the same thing as the creator as the first cause, or who has providential control and sustains the causal principle. Okay, so do you see that there is a demarcation and a distinction between the causal principle versus what is ultimate? You understand that?
No, and I do have a big question though.
Well, okay, well, I'll have to go over it again, but give me your question.
Okay, thank you. My question is, if I'm understanding our conversation correctly, it would be the case that the prime mover could be the ultimacy, but since it's impersonal, I wouldn't be able to know that it's the ultimacy.
Okay, I thought you were going to ask a question.
No, is that the case? I'm wondering if that's what we've.
No, let me reiterate here. The causal principle is it's an abstraction which attempts to quantify or to place in a set all instances of cause and effect relationships. Okay.
Why can the prime mover not be that?
We're not discussing that right now. What we're discussing is the nature of the causal principle. Okay. I didn't say the prime mover could or could not. Okay. I'm not discussing that at this particular moment. I'm trying to explain to you what the causal principle is. Okay. So when a cue ball hits another ball, okay, and an apple falls from a tree, we have two different discrete occurrences of cause and effect. Okay. You following me?
Sure, but minutes.
Okay, so when we talk about the causal principle, we're talking about the entire set within the realm of contingency of all instances of cause and effect sequencing. That's the causal principle. Right? Now, the causal principle is not the creator, nor is it the prime mover. But you told me that the causal principle is real. I want you to tell me, how is it real? By what means are you able to determine that there is something that is necessary that institutes and secures or makes the causal principle real?
The impossibility of an infinite regress.
Okay, well, on what basis do you say that?
I
You,
have to.
again, you're not in a position to say what's impossible, because only that which is ultimate dictates what is, can be, and cannot be.
Well, I appreciate talking to you, Darth, and maybe we'll cross paths again.
Okay, I hope so. Thank you for the conversation.
Cool. See you.
That guy's going to make a great lawyer someday. And I don't mean that as a compliment. I mean his verbal deceptive skills of evasion.
Go on to Tom Rabbit's channel, okay?